Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, gentlemen. As David already mentioned, this is going to be kind of the panel discussion, where we would like to talk about data governance in multi-tenant and hybrid environment. Gentlemen, you are both major consumers of the data in your organization, being responsible either for data integration or risk management. So maybe first question to you. You are getting in touch with data on daily basis. It's not just occasionally, but really your daily bread is dealing with the data. Well, a couple of years ago, the world looked like there has been quarterly releases. The development was properly planned. There has been the use of traditional databases and thorough analysis of the requirements and their development. Well, now and today, the world is changing quite rapidly. With this continuous development and cloudification and not so traditional database technologies being used together with the cloud technologies that Marcus was just mentioning. Do you see any impact on the data governance discipline in your organization related to this trend that is developing right now? Maybe Lubomir, I would like to ask for your opinion on this subject here.
Okay, I can start. So, and basically, I must say that extreme velocity of IT development always impacts data governance. This is somehow natural. So my question would be, yes, if we are speaking just about the velocity as such. But if we are speaking about the velocity caused by cloudification, now I will present my personal opinion, and that is no, because it was quite in a bad shape, let's call it like that, even before. At least in our environment, this extreme velocity is not necessarily attached to the cloudification as such, but to the evolution of the business. And as I said, this always goes hand in hand with trouble in terms of data governance.
Mm-hmm. Maybe one question from my side. Last time we had a talk about this subject. You mentioned that the biggest threat for the data governance might not be these new hackers using new technologies and cloud, but rather people who are already working in the bank and in the organization, and they always will be, and without the intention to insult anyone. You mentioned one particular role in the organization, and this is accountant. So
okay, that was partially a joke, but only partially. But to explain it a little bit further. Data governance has trouble in two cases. Okay, that's a simplification, but let's stick to it. If we have a participant in the data governance who doesn't know how to perform within the data governance environment, or the persons who are not willing to or doesn't want to, because whatever the reasons are. First group is usually connected to, but I'm simplifying a little bit, to the process guys, to the business guys, where the data governance is mostly a soft discipline, while the latter is mostly attached to people who knows, but there are some reasons why they are not following the data governance standards. The typical reason why they are not following the data governance standards is they have no time, or there is certain pressure from the development side that they have to develop something. My opinion is, if we are speaking about the cloudification, we are speaking mostly about the trouble from the second part. But if I look at the data governance as such right now, I cannot say that the first part, first group is less troublesome. Sometimes I even think it is more. So this is because this is what my answer is based on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Michal, maybe what's your view on the topic?
Hi, Luboslav. Hi, Lubomir. Well, maybe we could first think a little about what really is the data governance? Is it, and what is the data governance about? Is it like the maintaining the data inventory and having the proper processes to maintain the data inventory, or is it about the data protection and security and controlling the access rights, or is it about data quality and the processes around data quality? Or is it really about data management discipline, delivering the data to the consumers with all these components and ETLs and data warehouses, data marts, and so on? So first of all, data governance is quite a broad topic. And now on some levels, we could say that there is no impact from these new IT technologies and approaches development. And I would like to second to what Lubomir already said, that the cloudification itself, this from some level, this seems to be like a technology problem, not a data governance, not data ownership problem. And typically data governance is and data ownership is more on the business side, so more like business people are involved in owning data, defining data, and how data is used across processes. And this cloudification, this seems to be more a technological problem. So I don't think it really changes the main principles or main goals which need to be achieved with cloudification, with data governance. So, yeah, so at some level, we need to say that the main principles of data governance remain the same and unchanged. And this also goes for the goals which need to be achieved with data governance and management.
If I may add, I personally see the cloud infrastructure as additional piece to somehow already complicated environment. And I would ask the question, is it really worse that certain really juicy or spicy legacy systems the clients, corporation, firms might already have? So, and my answer is, well, okay, it's an opinion, but let's say a definitive answer is no, and it's highly influenced by the simple fact that how difficult maintaining the legacy systems might be in terms of the proper data governance. And clouds are usually kind of new technology, and my experience says that what is new is usually better in terms of maintenance and development standards and data governance compared to something that is really old, because old usually means less flexible.
Lubomir, Michal, thank you very much. Let me add maybe one piece of my opinion in this regard. My slight experience, especially in the area of new digital technologies that are being leveraged also in our organizations, meaning new digital channels and their propagation into cloud environment creates one very interesting aspect from my perspective, and this is the gravitation of slightly different type of people that are working on in this area. So while previously there has been very structured minds and analysts who are dealing with these technologies. Nowadays, what I am seeing is that it creates a gravity for the people who I would consider hackers using really new technologies, new database tools like Mongo, Cassandra, etc., who are simply moving fast and breaking things, let's call it this way, creating their pieces of codes and applications very rapidly, very quickly, and which might be very convenient on their end, however might create a bigger headache on our heads, on our shoulders, who are responsible for the data governance. So from my perspective, nature of data governance is not changing that much. The discipline is still about the same, about the data quality, about being able to establish proper data lineage. But from my perspective, what is changing is the velocity of the changes. That with these new technologies, the changes are happening more rapidly, more frequently. So the nature of the job is the same, but the speed of the job must be faster. What's your opinion about this aspect?
If I may, firstly, the question is whether this really must be faster, or whether this is faster by the very definition of the environment. As I said at the very beginning, we have two major groups, or two main groups operating within the data governance. Let's call it business and IT for simplicity. Okay, it's not the proper, but for simplicity, fine. From business perspective, nothing is changing, because this is just another piece of the infrastructure. Okay, fine, it's cloud. Some people will not even realize that what is on cloud, what is on premise, whatever. So from this perspective, nothing is changing. It seems on the first side that something is changing on the IT side, and now the question is whether for better or worse. What, in my opinion, are the key reasons why data governance might have some trouble on the IT side? And as I said, it's because people don't want to do certain things. But it's not natural that they don't want to because they don't want to. It's usually because, for instance, they don't have time, or there is some pressure in terms of missing resources and stuff like that. And now the question is, will the cloudification worsen it or even improve it? And I say, okay, I don't know how it finally be, but in case the cloudification will save some time, it might even improve it. Why? Because the development time will be squeezed somehow, and the people will naturally have more time for addressing some development standards, including data governance. So this is obviously hypothetical. I'm just saying this does not necessarily need to lead to the worsening of the data governance environment as such.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Michal, maybe?
Well, good that you mentioned these new technologies, and some time ago, it used to be called the big data. Now, maybe we are already getting used to this term, and we are already seeing into details of that. And there are these 5 V's of big data, this velocity, volume, veracity, and there is also variety. And this really makes the field bigger. And the data governance and data management topics are really then getting wider and also getting deeper. So the problem is getting more complex with this. And the variety of data, it means that we need to work with different data sources with structured and unstructured and semi-structured data. And often the data structures changes. So as we were in the history used to work in this phases that we try to define and understand the processes and the data used in those processes, that we try to catalog and make an inventory of those data sets. We try to define the usage and distributions of data and data protections, and then we were used to monitor the data quality and the usage of the data. Now, as the variety and flexibility of these data structures and data sets is much greater, this is much harder to follow this process. And very often we are getting very rich data structures from external data providers, from our own internal systems, and we need to be more flexible in this overall data governance phases. So we need to only focus on those data points which are really needed for some analytical processes, for some insight generation processes. So we are now struggling much more with the variety of data, not so much with the velocity, because the real-timeness and the high speed inflow of data, this has been here for a long time. We are not struggling so much with the volume of data, because now we also have get used to that already. But the variety and the richness of those structures, and sometimes very often covering the data is covering the same area, but the structures are very different. The meaning is similar but different. So this variety is something which we really struggle more now than in previous times.
Okay, so Lubomir, sorry.
Yeah, just a comment. Well, I generally agree. This is true, and well, in fact, the higher variety, the more difficulties in terms of following data governance. This is true, but again, I will oppose a little bit with this one. Is the variety or the current variety environments without any cloudification in a shape that the data governance is fine? I would say no. The vast majority of environments, as long as I know, doesn't have adopted the full data governance standards to the whole scope. Simply, it is not possible, and also value for money is not the best. We might have quite many companies already have some staged areas. Some companies have data lakes. Some companies have vast data warehouses, some BI platforms, etc., etc. And the question is it worthy to adopt data governance to the whole landscape of this? And I say no. So if the cloudification comes, this is just another piece that should be evaluated where the data governance standards and procedures should be applied to. To cloud, for instance, okay, there will be a piece of the cloud which will be kind of wild. Let's put it like this: some sort of sandbox or very broad data lake, whatever. Even the structure of the data might be different. Okay, it's fine. But there will be some pieces of it which should be eligible for some data governance standards, and that will be it. Like part of the cloud will be under data governance standards equally as part of the, let's say, traditional environment will be under data governance standards. And what these parts will be, well, that's the question, but usually those where it is worthy, like where it's used, where some sort of consolidation in terms of terms, in terms of data quality, in terms of whatever needs to happen. So this is what I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if I understand you properly, you're saying that there are certain areas which always will have to be governed very, very tightly and very, very properly, or regulatory data. This is always the case for the bank. Should we then accept the fact that with these new trends and technologies, there might be a possibility that we will not be able to govern some data related to digital channels, for instance, properly? Should we accept this fact, or do you think we should still do something about it? Maybe not creating so big focus on the regulatory part of the data, but still being able to control it, or shall we just leave it as it is, to leave it with its own life and pace?
Very quickly, if I may, but this is already happening. So even in traditional environments, there is quite a huge piece of the environment which we are leaving as it is, simply because value for money, development against development standards and governance, it's simply not worth it. So the companies have to make some choices in order what has the best business case, what is under regulation, what is really mandatory, etc., etc. So the reasons might differ from company to company, and I would say even if cloud solutions kick in, the same story, I must say.
Well, it is the same story, but it is much faster.
Sure. Yeah.
So I do agree, and what I would like to add that it is much faster. So it creates much more opportunities for those ungoverned shadow data sets, shadow area being there. However, I mean, data governance and data management is by no means an obsolete topic. Definitely not. It is.
Sure.
Just the opposite. Yeah, this creates much more pressure to actually govern the data sets, to be aware of what data we have in which components, and those components, be them on-premise, be them in cloud solutions, be them in cloud storages or in sandboxes, whatever. But there is much bigger pressure for us to be aware of what data we have where, how it is distributed, and how to manage the quality. And the cloudification and the ability to deploy the solutions much faster, to try and sandbox new solutions, to prototype, to use some solutions and some platforms and tools just temporarily, like for half a year project, for a year project, temporarily for specific business missions, and then just discontinue them. So this ability to deploy new environments fast, this creates the heterogeneity. This increases the heterogeneity of the environment even much more. Yeah. So I mean, we need to consider this, and we probably have to learn to live with it even better than we were living with it until now. Yeah.
I will maybe come back to the original message, and that is, and whether this is actually good or bad for the data governance. For instance, you mentioned sandboxing. Sandboxing on one side is perceived as something, let's call it wild, which is completely outside of data governance standards, and this is not necessarily true. Let's imagine that we are developing the solution and we try to cover all the procedure standards, data quality, metadata, terms, consolidation, everything. it is very difficult to make it spot on from scratch or on the first iteration. And my experience says that sandboxing is usually very helpful here, because it's much better to try it first, even outside, let's say, some governance or some standards, fine-tune it, and then come back and do it properly. So because of reasons like this, it might even help, I must say, because speed here won't be used for a disruption of the governance as such, but as some sort of fine-tuning in advance.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe this part of coming back and doing it properly, this part is increasingly difficult. But that's not a new thing.
Yeah, but I would say not more than try to do it completely right in the first iteration.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, this traditional process, understanding the data, defining, cataloging, how it is used, how it is distributed. Sometimes we just need to jump somewhere in the middle of that process and start using the incoming data sets from external providers, from the internal rich data structures. Yeah? And then as it is used in the prototypes, in the sandboxes, in the machine learning models, then we need to pick those critical data elements which we should start govern and define properly, and then pick those elements which where we need to apply rigid governance process on those, so that they get at least somehow stable. So this might be, from my perspective, this might be the biggest challenge introduced with this velocity of IT environments, what you have mentioned here in this question.
Maybe let's get to another question. My takeaway from the discussion is that the discipline as such is not changing much in its nature, but it's worth to say that definitely doesn't lose its importance. On the contrary, with this increasing velocity. Probably we don't want to do a lecture what data governance really means and what are the pillars of the data governance. These are very famous known: lineage, quality, taxonomy, architecture, etc. Do you see some of them being more important compared to the others, or you see them simply equal in the governing and managing the data in the organization? And let's maybe pick any from the topics mentioned in the slide. Lubomir, what's your opinion?
Okay, it's quite a funny question, and I will answer a little bit controversially. It's the question like whether I like my hands more or my ears more, or something like that. So data governance is extremely broad and even heterogeneous. So you can have quite big trouble if you don't cover properly any of these aspects. And my question to this, what I consider to be the crucial. My experience of saying that all of this is important, but what is the most important is something completely different. And I turn to an opinion over the years that data governance is primarily about how you are able to convince people that this should be done, and this will be valuable in the end, even for them. So I see this much more as a soft discipline. So if you ask me what do I consider the most crucial is on how to convince people, how to make it easy going for them, how to explain why we are doing, and then if this is fine, then we can build up on each and every of this discipline that matters in a given company, in a given environment.
Okay, this, in my opinion, goes hand in hand with easy usage of the tools used for the data governance. So if the process is cumbersome and I have to look for 15 different Excel sheets where to put the data dictionary term and its description and different tool where to draw the lineage between the data items, this makes the process quite cumbersome and uneasy, which makes it difficult also for the business users to convince them to do their job. Would you agree with this one?
Completely. When we rebuilt our solution for data governance or part of it, there were two key intentions besides having a good content. Let's say the good content is a must, because if you have just a facade, it does nothing regardless of what the facade is. But two crucial points were that the solution as such must be good looking and responsive. So let's imagine we have the content, and then we try to put these two features on it, and it improves the environment really a lot.
Mm-hmm. Michal?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The content is that what needs to be there, and the comfort of using it. That there's yeah, absolutely. There's nothing to disagree with. Absolutely. Now, this what you are mentioning here: data quality, data lineage, taxonomy. These are the tools or the components which we can use to convey the meaning of data, the distribution of the data, and the understanding to the data users. Yeah, and in each organization, the focus might be a little bit somewhere else. What I have seen, one of the most useful or added value things is data lineage. Data lineage. So this is one of the pieces of that information which usually brings a huge value. Yeah? Understanding where the data is coming from, which data is mixed in my results, in my reports, and so on. So this brings a huge value. On the other hand, it's absolutely impossible to have data lineage without taxonomy, sure, and proper processes and methodologies for inventorying data, for cataloging data. And so which one of these is more important then? Yeah, so I mean, there are some steps to start building it, and you would start with maybe the architecture and the components and the inventory and the taxonomies and so on. But data lineage is equally important to these. Yeah, and then data quality, I mean, pretty much the same thing with this one. Yeah.
This is what I want to second. I just imagine the situation where we had a data lineage solution, but have somehow underdeveloped metadata part. So we see exactly how the data are flowing, but very soon in the change in the flow, we came to the point when we asked ourselves, okay, but we know it's here, but we have no idea what does it mean. So really, all of these pieces need somehow to stick together.
Gentlemen, I hate to interrupt. I have to be rude here, but we're running late on time. Apologies. That was a very lively discussion. Thank you.
It was very fruitful. Michal, Lubomir, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe just to conclude in 2 sentences, what we learned or the opinion that we came into is that first of all, data governance as such is definitely not losing its importance. And probably the new technologies are not changing the discipline as much, might have an impact on technological side. From business user perspective, it's the same old data governance as it used to be all the time. Thank you very much. David, you might.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you, guys. Thank you very much for this lively discussion. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Absolutely. That was very insightful.